Our reading from the Old Testament today is Samuel 3, 1 through 10. And it's the Lord calls Samuel. The boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. In those days, the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. One night, Eli, whose eyes were becoming so weak that he could barely see, was lying down in his usual place. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the house of the Lord where the ark of God was. When the Lord called Samuel, Samuel answered, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." But Eli said, "I did not call. Go back and lie down." So he went and he lay down. Again the Lord called Samuel. And Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." "My son," Eli said, "I did not call. Go back and lie down." Now Samuel did not know yet the Lord. The word of the Lord had not been revealed to him. A third time the Lord called Samuel. And Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." Then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as the other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening."
The next scripture readings from Mark's Gospel starts at chapter 2, verse 23, and it continues to chapter 3, verse 6. Jesus went through the wheat fields on the Sabbath. As the disciples made their way, they were picking the heads of wheat. The Pharisees said to Jesus, "Look, why are they breaking the Sabbath law?" He said to them, "Haven't you ever read what David did when he was in need? When he and those with him were hungry? During the time when Abiathar was high priest, David went into God's house and ate the bread of the presence, which only the priests were allowed to eat. He also gave bread to those who were with him." And then he said, "The Sabbath was created for humans. Humans weren't created for the Sabbath. This is why the human one is Lord even over the Sabbath." But Jesus returned to the synagogue. A man with a withered hand was there. Wanting to bring charges against Jesus, they were watching Jesus closely to see if he would heal on the Sabbath. He said to the man with the withered hand, "Step up where people can see you." Then he said to them, "Is it legal on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" But they said nothing. Looking around at them with anger, deeply grieved at their unyielding hearts, he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." So he did, and his hand was made healthy. At that, the Pharisees got together with the supporters of Herod to plan how to destroy Jesus. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Believe it or not, my wife actually accuses me of not listening from time to time. I'm probably the only spouse or person that experiences that, right? In fact, we kind of frequently joke that I have flaps like that of an alligator. So if you don't know, an alligator has flaps that'll cover its nostrils and its eyes when it goes underwater, and also its ears. She says I have alligator flaps that cover my ears, and I just subconsciously, selectively hear what I want to hear, and I can't control them. But I think sometimes it's the tinnitus maybe speaking when it's a little crowded or busy and I can't hear conversations all that well. Or maybe I focus so intently on other objects or things or something going on that all my energy and focus is diverted to that, to the fact that I tune out things around me. Growing up, I even remember my mother telling me on numerous occasions, "Did you even listen to anything that I said?" And I'm sure others have heard that as well. Have you ever felt like that you were kind of that person in that predicament? A situation where it felt like the person you were talking to was not even listening. Whether that be your spouse, a friend, a colleague, or even an acquaintance or a stranger. And maybe they were distracted and not making the proper eye contact, which gave the body language that I'm not really listening to what you're exactly saying. Either way, when we're on the receiving end of a conversation that seems to be very one-sided, it can be frustrating, disappointing, and disheartening. Frequently, most humans desire just a chance to be heard, or to have a voice to express to a lending and listening ear. A lot of us desire dialogue or conversation with someone else, where the listening and talking is reciprocated and kind back and forth. But when it comes to listening, it seems to take a surprising amount of energy and focus to actually listen, right? It's harder than it sounds. We can't just show up in a room and have these ears that we think, we can't close, so they're open all the time. So if we're just present in a room when someone's talking, then we're hearing them, right? But that's not always the case. I know from preaching. People can show you don't always hear what I say, but you're present in the room with these ears that don't have flaps to close them. But all we have to do is intently and attentively focus in order to truly listen to what someone might be saying. But it takes more than just our ears. It's our entire body of focusing to truly attentively and actively listen to what someone is saying. If we're in that process of not listening, then we're committing some of the same acts that those Pharisees were committing. Ones where they really didn't pay attention or listen. And a lot is lost on both sides, whether we're talking or listening. Both parties end up losing out. So I get this sense that there was this kind of underlying theme of both scripture passages that we dove into today. That of not listening, right? So first we have Samuel and Eli kind of getting into a little disagreement over who said what. Samuel could have sworn it was Eli calling him as he showed up 3 different times saying, "Here I am once again when you call me." But it took Eli's wisdom to mention to him that no, it was God calling him. So Eli heard where Samuel did not. Surely and eventually Samuel listens and crucially understands that God is in fact calling him, both literally and figuratively. That God is uttering actual words to him, and we know that God is calling Samuel as a servant to serve God down the road. And then in Mark's gospel, we have the account for the day with the Pharisees once again up to no good, asking all sorts of questions. They're incredulous that Jesus is actually doing work on the Sabbath, their holy and sacred day in which no work should ever be done. But did you catch Jesus' curt response? He said the Sabbath was created for humans. Humans were not created for the Sabbath. This is why the human one is Lord even over the Sabbath. Yet after hearing that, the Pharisees still did not fully understand what he meant. And frankly, one can't really blame them. A lot of people didn't know what Jesus was saying or talking about when he talked, right? Even his close disciples. Often stuff would go over their heads or in one ear and out the other. But what Jesus was saying is that the day wasn't created for us to govern or to rule or to have laws and rules set in place for it. It was meant to benefit us, to heal us, to nurture us, and to give us a moment of rest. You see, they were trying to find a way to trap Jesus, and this was their path to doing just that. It was the Pharisees' agenda that got in the way of hearing what Jesus was really saying. So that too is a common problem that we find in the world today, at least from my perspective. Too many agendas are trying to be met, and too many misunderstandings are just taking place in normal conversations or dialogue. You see, there's a huge difference between listening and understanding, right? All it really takes is a set of ears to listen. But does that mean we truly heard exactly what the person was trying to say to us? Or what they were attempting to communicate to us? And not necessarily. And I would venture to guess that while listening is and should be emphasized, it is equally, if not more important, that we understand what is being said, unless we end up like those incredulous Pharisees. I mean, how many times has someone said to us, or have we said to someone, "No, you're not hearing me. That's not what I'm trying to say." Or, "Why is it that you never understand what I'm saying? Do you even listen to me?" For instance, let's use these few examples to distinguish between simply listening and understanding. When one's wife says to you, "I think it would be good," or "I like it when," I've learned over the years that that's code for "you should do this." They're not offering up their opinion, right? So when you hear that, just go ahead and do it. And don't think that, "Oh, that's a nice opinion that you're sharing with me today." So that's one way of understanding as opposed to hearing, right? I can hear and know what she says, but I have to understand that this is what she's really trying to say. So that's one kind of example, small example, but even a bigger and kind of deeper and more serious level is an example of a person that suffers from depression or some other type of similar affliction. And so if someone with depression comes up to me and said they just wanted to simply ask, "Hey, could we grab a cup of coffee today or sometime in the near future? I've been a little sad lately." If I responded with a quick, "Well, I'm sorry you're sad, but I'm a little busy. Can't do coffee today. Maybe sometime in a month down the road we could do that." But that would convey that their feelings don't really matter. It would also emphasize that they weren't really fully understood if I just kind of swept that by the wayside. And so in both situations, it's important to uncover what's at the root of the message trying to be conveyed. It takes an effort on both parties' fronts, both the speaker and the listener. Both have an important role. And in a tragic turn of events recently, one of the pastors I met at my retreat, Adam Fisher, who most of you might remember as the rocks stacker. You remember seeing those rocks stacked up? He was a pastor that actually went around and did that all week. He shared some sad news with us via Facebook this past Tuesday. He said that his younger brother, Grant, died by suicide on Tuesday morning. So they're not sure why it happened, and he even admitted that no one saw this coming. And we're not sure how he got to this point. Adam mentioned that his brother Grant did struggle with a bipolar disorder, so maybe that had something to do with it. Either way, Adam and his family are struggling to deal with this loss and this grief that they're now experiencing. So they've asked for some support and some prayers for living this new life with a new normal without their beloved Grant actively in it now. So depression and anxieties are very serious issues. Some that are not always given the proper attention that they might deserve. For people that struggle with those ailments in life, we can't always just resort to listening. If someone's depressed, it can often be masked in public to give the appearance that everything's kind of hunky-dory. But kind of like the rote responses we give when someone asks us, "How's your day?" Or "How are you doing?" And we say, "Oh, fine," or "I'm great," or "Life couldn't be better." When in actuality, that's not really the case. We're conditioned to give shorter responses because we feel others might not have time for us, or others don't want to be burdened with our burdens. So we don't want to waste their time or think we're pushing people away. So as a pastor, I know routinely how that can feel. Bearing the burdens of others is taxing, spiritually and emotionally. But someone has to bear that burden. And it can't always just be God. A lot of times it needs to be another human being. So we need to listen, and especially hear and understand one another to appropriately convey the message that we are loved in this world and in this place. So here's a quote from Adam that he shared during this long Facebook post on Tuesday that kind of struck a chord with me. He wrote, "I think it's really important for us to talk about mental health issues and our struggles. The shame is a poison that threatens all life. The antidote to this toxin is to share our struggles in safe, judgment-free spaces. So please talk about your struggles and share your shame. Our speech can liberate us and others who might be struggling." Now, what a powerful quote. an invitation to share in a space that we can know is safe and free from judgment, but with someone that might also want to find a way to get us some help. So we don't only need to listen, but we also need to share our own feelings too. I feel that is also equally as important as listening. You see, at the heart of a hesitance to do both of these is a worldwide issue. Too often I feel people in this world are not in the business of listening to one another or sharing freely with someone they can trust. We typically want our voices to be heard, but we often tune out the voices and opinions of other people. This is due to the fact that we disagree with someone or don't like them or have some particular preconceived notion of who they are and what they want and why they're doing something. We're either too quick to share our own opinion or too quick to cut someone else's speech too short if we feel they're just rambling on a little bit. Or we've already assumed what their end path or their goal might be. We make the assumption that we know the point they're trying to make. But that's not the way we should be listening to other people. At the same time, we need to allow talking space for them to respond and to have that healthy conversation and dialogue in life. A one-sided conversation is not a conversation at all. So on top of all of this, I feel that we fail to listen attentively to God as well. You see, the hard part with this is it's very challenging to think back to a point in our life and pinpoint moments in which we feel we may be ignored or did not hear God at all. Can you remember those conversations where you didn't hear anything? No, you can't really pinpoint or mark those with anything. What you can do is remember moments where you had a healthy and fruitful conversation, or where you heard God calling or talking to you. So we have to listen, and we have to be open and aware of that. I don't know where I'd be today if I didn't listen to God calling me to ministry. I doubt I'd have the wonderful, beautiful family that I do now. I doubt I'd be here in a church and a family that I love here in this community. I don't know where I'd be if I didn't hear or listen to God. That's why we may feel like sometimes it's a waste of time, but we need to stop and smell the roses from once in a while. Enjoy that small, soft time in life. Take your time out of your day and listen to someone. If you can do one thing this week, it's listen to someone with your whole heart, mind, and body. Just at least one person. Whether it's your spouse or your stranger or a friend that you just happen to meet or anyone else in life. You see, what we have to do here starts with listening. And we have to develop into good, healthy listeners. It has to start there. So at the starting of that process is an openness. An open heart, open mind, and making sure you take the flaps down off of your ears, right? From there, we have to have a desire to listen, even if it takes every single ounce of our being. And it does take a lot of energy to listen and listen well. That might be part of my problem when I get home. Perhaps I just had a day where I listened out. I get to my wife and say, my ears literally got talked off today. So I have to pick them up and put them back on. That's not fair to my children or my wife who have been waiting all day to tell me something with my eyes, my ears, and my whole body and presence there with them. So somehow, some way, I've got to find the energy and the courage and to muster it up and go back to active listening with my family. It shouldn't just be for one person or another. So as such, it starts there, with an able and willingness to hear and listen to others. So once we have begun the listening phase, we need to ensure that we brush aside any agenda that we might have, or any kind of argument or counter-argument that we're building in our mind. We need to just put that on the back burner. I know it's easier said than done. But this is a big reason why I tell people that I'm a processor. I say it all the times in session meetings and other times that when someone says something, I'm processing it. Meaning I'm listening to every single thing that you say. and taking it at face value for what you are saying. I'm not constructing my argument. I'm not building up some counter argument or something I can rebuttal to that or put my 2 cents in, but I'm actually listening with my whole being. So the part of the processing is then figuring out how I'm going to reword or say what I want to say after listening to someone talk to me for that period of time. So that's why I need to cut out distractions. I cut out different agendas that I might have building in my own head to fully listen to someone else. In closing today, if you've come here today and you have some sort of struggle in your life, do not be afraid to share it. See, we're a church family here that cares deeply for one another. So I invite you, if you have something, you can confidentially share it with me. You can call me, send me an email, text message me, or whatever. Find some way to get in touch with me. But please don't keep it in. Or find that person you trust wholeheartedly. Now, whether it's a fellow church member, a friend, a spouse, a loved one, a mother, a father. Find someone in life that you can confide in. We all need that person. We all need that person that listens and understands what we're saying. We all need that person that loves us and cares for us and can support us and help us get on a healthy path in life. It's okay to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not an open invitation for shame. So you need to find someone that you can confide in and talk to, and also listen to them as well. Someone that you can trust, someone that you won't judge or shame for what they share, no matter how deep or how catastrophic it may seem. But sometimes I might have to start with God. And maybe we start there. And start sharing and listening to what God is saying or calling to us, or our own struggles with God. But by all means, I encourage you to find another person. Find that someone in life that you can trust and share and love and get help with. So all of us are in this together. It's not an easy road, but there's one thing I can assure you. We're always listening. Amen.